Hi, this is Dr. Adrian Tenerife Sacristan, and welcome to our online classroom at Kuya Prof TV. Hi, once again, this is Dr. Adrian Tenerife Sacristan, aka Kuya Prof, at welcome sa ating online classroom. Okay, our topic today is about identifying and selecting projects, and our learning objectives after studying this module or lesson. Students should be able to, number one, discuss how projects are identified, explain how projects are prioritized and selected. Number three, identify and describe at least 8 elements of a project charter and prepare a project charter. And lastly, you should be able to prepare a request for proposal. Okay? Those are our learning objectives for this lesson. Okay? To proceed, let us discuss about project identification. The initiating phase of the project life cycle starts with recognizing a need, problem, or opportunity for which a project or projects are identified to address the need. Okay? Another is, projects are identified in various ways. Number one, during an organization's strategic planning. Number two, as part of its normal business operations and in response to unexpected events. The results of a group of individuals deciding to organize a project to address a particular need. Those are the reason or the various ways on how to identify projects. It is important to clearly define the need. This may require gathering data about the need or opportunity to help determine if it is worth pursuing. Sometimes organizations identify several or many needs but have limited funds and people available to pursue potential projects. And this is very important to address all of those needs. In such cases, the company must go through a decision-making process to prioritize and select those projects that will result in the greatest overall benefits. Now, let's proceed to the project selection. Project selection involves evaluating various needs or opportunities and then deciding which of those should move forward as a project to be implemented. The benefits and consequences, advantages and disadvantages, pluses and minuses of each opportunity need to be considered. And of course, it should be evaluated. They can be quantitative and qualitative, tangible and intangible. Each person's decision will be a combination of quantitative evaluation and let's call it a gut feeling based on experiences of those people. Now, let's talk about the steps in projecting selections. Okay? Now, let's talk about the steps in project selections. And they are the following. Number one, develop a set of criteria against which the opportunity will be evaluated. For example, alignment with company goals, anticipated sales, okay, increase in market share, establishment of a new market or markets, anticipated retail price, investment required or requirement, and estimated manufacturing cost per unit. Another is technology development requirement and return on investment, human resources, impact, public creation, competitors' reaction, expected time frame, regulatory approval, risk, and of course, you have to consider risk because it will really affect how you select your project. Now, let us also consider list assumptions that will be used as the basis for each opportunity. This is very important that you have developed that list. If an opportunity is to build an on-site daycare center, for example, for children and elderly relatives of company employees, one assumption might be that the company would be able to obtain a bank loan. Okay? Bank loan will be able to help you build such a center. Of course, you should also consider data gathering and information for each opportunity, okay, to help ensure an intelligent decision regarding project selection. It may be necessary to gather some preliminary financial estimates associated with each opportunity, such as estimated revenue, projections, and implementation and operating costs. You should also consider, in addition to this, to gather hard data. It may also be necessary to obtain other information, such as opinions and reactions from various stakeholders who would be affected by the opportunity. You should also evaluate each opportunity against the criteria. Once all the data and information has been collected, analyzed, and summarized, for each opportunity, it should be given to all the individuals responsible for performing the evaluation. It is beneficial to have several individuals involved in the evaluation and selection decision in order to get a variety of viewpoints. Okay? As they say before, two heads are better than one. These individuals will combine the collected data with their gut feelings regarding the project when making their decisions. Okay? Now, let us proceed to our next topic about selection of project. The project charter. Project charter is very important because you are going to submit that to your client. Now, let's talk about this. Once a project is selected, it is formally authorized using a document referred to as a project charter, sometimes called a project authorization or project initiation document. Okay, this is a document that you will need to have a band, okay, with between the client and the team. This document serves as a number of purposes. Number one, provides sponsor approval to go forward with the project, commits the funding for the project, summarizes the key conditions and parameters of the project, and establishes the framework for evaluation or developing a detailed baseline plan for performing the project. The project charter includes many possible elements, including the ones seen on the slide that you are seeing right now. Possible elements. Let's talk about those elements now. Project title. That is very important. What is the title of the project? Purpose, description, objective, success criteria or expected benefits, funding, major deliverables, acceptance criteria. Okay. What else? We also have to consider milestone schedule, key assumptions, constraints, major risk, approval requirements, project manager, project manager, reporting requirements, sponsored site, designee, and approval signature. Those are the elements that should be included in a charter. So these are very important because without those elements, you cannot really pursue with the project that you are proposing to your clients. Okay? Now, let's talk about preparing a request for proposal. Why do you need to request for proposal? For example, if you are the team, okay, or the company, you would like to get some, okay, the best team to work with you for a certain project. So you will be requesting for a proposal. What is preparing a request for proposal? If an organization does not have the expertise, for example, or staff capacity to plan and perform the project or major portions of the project, outsourcing the work to an external resource, okay, such as a contractor, is a good choice. Okay, as I mentioned a while ago, you need to outsource, you need to get other team from the outside to help you accomplish that task or project. And RFP, or preparing a request for proposal, helps the organization decide which contractor to use. The purpose of preparing the RFP is to state comprehensively and in detail what is required from the customer's point of view to address that identified need. A good RFP allows contractors or a project team to understand what the customer expects so that they can prepare thorough proposal that will satisfy the customer's requirement at a realistic price. Okay, this is very important. The price of the project, okay, when it is being proposed to you, should be acceptable to the company. It should be noted that in many situations, a formal RFP might not be prepared. Okay, in reality, in a formal setting, the need is instead communicated informally. Okay, sometimes orally rather than writing. Why it is so? Because sometimes before you agree with a formal contract, you should agree in principle first through discussion and initial meetings, and after that, a formal proposal will be developed. This is often the case when the project will be implemented by a firm's internal staff rather than by an external contractor. Okay? Usually, as I mentioned here, if the team that will work for you in a particular project is coming from the within or coming from the organization itself, a contract or proposal is not really a requirement. But if you will be looking for a team outside the company, a good formal contract or proposal is very important, and it will help you establish the kind of relationship that you're looking for. Okay? So, now let's discuss about the guidelines for developing an RFP. There are several guidelines here. Following are some guidelines for drafting a formal request for proposal to external contractor. In this case, you are looking for a team outside your company. Number one, you have to consider this. The RFP must state the project objective, okay, or purpose, including any rationale or background information that may be helpful to contractors so that they can prepare thorough and responsive proposal. Okay? Number two, an RFP must provide a statement of work, or SOW. An SOW deals with the scope of the project, outlining the task or work elements and customer wants the contractor or project team to perform. The RFP must include the customer requirements, okay, which define specifications and attributes. Requirements cover size, quantity, color, weight, speed, performance, that very important and necessary in the project, and other physical or operational parameters the contractor's proposed solution must satisfy. The RFP should state that what deliverables the customer expect the contractor to provide. Deliverables are the tangible items that the contractor is to supply, and it could include periodic progress reports or a final reports as well. Okay? As well as final product. The RFP should state the acceptance criteria the customer will use to determine if the project deliverables are completed, according to the customer's requirements, of course. The RFP should list any customer supplied items. That is very important to include here, because not all items will be provided by the company. Some of the items or most of the items should be provided by the customer. Okay? The RFP might state the approvals required by the customer. Okay? So another is some RFP mention the type of contract the customer intends to use. It could be fixed. Okay? It could be fixed. What else? The RFP should state what deliverables the customer expect the contractor to provide. The RFP should state the acceptance criteria the customer will use to determine if the project deliverables are completed. I also mentioned that a while ago. And also, the RFP should provide instructions for the format and content of the contractor proposals. Instructions might state the maximum number of pages, the number of details the customer wants the contractor to show regarding the cost, and other specifications. The RFP should indicate the due date. Okay? That is very important because your client will expect you to deliver that on time or ahead of time. So date is very important to be included here in the contract, by which the customer expect potential contractors to submit proposals. The RFP may include the evaluation criteria that will be used to assess proposals from competing contractors, because you are not only the one to submit proposal to the company. There are several contractors will be submitting proposals, so the company will be evaluating what's the best proposal from different contractors will be used for the project. In rare cases, the RFP will include the funds the customer has available to spend on the project. Contractor can then submit proposals that are appropriate to that level of funding. Okay? So what does it mean? There are funding that will be shelled out for the first few days of the project to be included, and that will be coming from the customer. Okay? So there are such kind of arrangement, and that will be helpful for the organization, because the organization initially will not spend anything before the project will be implemented. Okay? So another is soliciting proposals. Once the RFP has been prepared, the customer solicits proposals by notifying potential contractors that the RFP is available. One way for customers to identify potential bidders is by identifying a selected group of contractors in advance and sending each of them a copy of the RFP. Now, in this case, the company will be notifying different contractors about the request for proposal by the company. Another approach is to advertise the project in business newspapers and on website that the RFP is available. For example, in our case, it could be the broadsheets. Okay, the company will be having this ads in that business section of that newspaper. Okay, and contractors will be notified about this, and they will be submitting to the company their proposal. Business customers and contractors consider the RFP or proposals process to be competitive. Business or government customers may be able to hold a bidders meeting to explain the RFP and answer questions from interested contractor. Now, not all project life cycle include the preparations of a written RFP. Some bypass the proposal steps and might move right into planning and performing the project. There are other projects in which requirements are not written down in a formal RFP but are communicated verbally to several providers or suppliers. Although projects can vary from very formal and business-like to highly informal, all RFPs starts with the identification of a need, problem, and opportunity. Again, I would like to emphasize that not all RFP is actually coming from a very formal and business-like. Actually, most of the RFP is coming from a highly informal. Okay, meaning the company will just talk to a lot of people or different kinds of people that are interested in the project, and if these people are interested, they will be submitting proposal to the company. Okay, now that's the end of our discussion, but I would like to have a rundown of the critical success factors of RFP or selecting projects. The need must be clearly defined before preparing a request for proposal. Okay? This is just a summary. The critical success factor to have a very good RFP and selecting of projects. When selecting a project from among several needs or opportunities, the decision should be based on which project will provide the greatest overall benefits compared to its cost and possible consequences. Having a well-understood evaluation and selection process and a well-rounded committee will increase the chances of making the best project selection decision. Establish quantitative or measurable project success criteria or expected benefits. A good RFP allows contractors to understand what the customer expects so that they can prepare a thorough proposal that addresses the customer's need and requirements. A request for proposal should include a statement of work, customer requirements, expected deliverables, and the criteria by which the customer will evaluate proposals. An RFP should provide instructions for the format and content of contractor proposals so that the customer will be able to make a consistent and fair comparison and evaluation of all the proposals. Customers must be careful not to provide information to only some of the contractors because it would give these contractors an unfair competitive advantage in preparing their proposals. So that the ends of our discussion about our topic today, okay, which is about selecting, okay, and identifying projects. So thank you very much for attending my class, and I hope you learned something today about selecting and identifying projects. So see you in our next lesson. Thank you very much.